welcome. And on behalf of the Embassy of the United States in Budapest and on behalf of the American Colony in Veszprém, I'd like to welcome Ethelbert Miller in Balatonalmádi Dual Language School. He was born in New York City in 1950. He received his BA from Howard University. His poetry collections include How We Sleep on the Nights We Don't Make Love, Whispers, Secrets and Promises, First Light, UN Selected Poems, Where Are the Love Poems for Dictators, Season of Hunger, Cry of Rain, The Migrant Worker, and Andromeda. He is editor of many anthologies and the author of the memoir Fathering Words, The Making of an African-American Writer. His awards include the Columbia Merit Award and the O.B. Hardison Jr. Poetry Prize. In 1979, the mayor of Washington, D.C. proclaimed September 28, 1979 as Ethelbert Miller Day. He is the founder and director of the Ascension Poetry Reading Series, one of the oldest literary series in the Washington area, and the director of the African American Resource Center at Howard University, a position he has held since 1974. He and his wife live in Washington, D.C. Please welcome him and enjoy this opportunity of having this well-respected gentleman in Balatonalmádiba.
So it's the African American Historical Month here, and how do you feel?
Well, I had a wonderful time. You know, it's an opportunity to see once again an old friend I hadn't seen in many years, so that made it very special. She was key in terms of the invitation for me to come. I travel a lot, so this was another opportunity to see a different part of the world I hadn't seen. So I'm very happy.
And by the way, do you know any Hungarian artists?
No, but I'm learning. and I've been, people have been very gracious in terms of giving me books. And one of the things I always try to do as a writer and a literary activist is stay in touch with people. I'm very much concerned now in terms of translation. And so I've been talking to some people here who have been translating poetry. So hopefully when I get back to the United States, this dialogue will continue.
My next question will be that what do you think, how much importance has culture in nowadays society?
Well, culture is extremely important. You know, we live in a very, challenging times right now. We live in a time of great mobility, so people are moving around. We are unfortunately living at a time when there are many conflicts in terms of wars. Hopefully culture can be a bridge towards better communications, better understanding. I think that with culture comes a sense of history that we need to take time to learn. What I'm doing in terms of traveling is always very important, in terms of being able to see things up close, a first-hand experience. And then we have to always go back to, like yourself, we have to ask ourselves in terms of how are we educating the leaders of tomorrow, okay? How are they going to help our culture not just survive, but to expand? And we have to be concerned about things like preservation as well as interpretation of our culture. You know, many times we need to realize that more study needs to be done. You know, there's things that need to be explained, especially to young people, so they understand the beauty and the importance of our culture. Too often cultures wind up, you know, things get lost, forgotten, and almost every generation has to sort of rekindle the fire, you know, so that things are not forgotten.
As the culture changes with the society, the people?
Well, I think the culture will change. I think what happened, things are not static, you know, things are always changing. I think now with technology, our culture is almost being bombarded constantly in terms of changing it, and so we have to understand exactly what might disappear. I'm looking at certain things that I grew up with that no longer exist. Okay, so when I look at a cell phone today, a smartphone, I'm just amazed by what it does. There's such tremendous possibilities that are there, and if I'm going to use it correctly, I have to learn how to use it. Okay, it's like just like if I give you a tool, you have to understand how to use it. You might use it and play with it, but after a while you realize, okay, this tool can really make my life better. And if that's the case, I need to know how to use it properly. And I think that's the challenges we face in terms of understanding our culture and using it properly.
This is called Tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will take the journey back, sail the middle passage. It would be better to be packed like spoons again than to continue to live among knives and forks.
Holnap visszautazó székhelyi rabszolgakereskedő hajók útvonalán. Ha újra összelennénk zsúfolva, mint a kanalak, az jobb lenne tovább élni kések és villák között.
These are the two schools, okay. Okay, now, what's that, 200 people in the school? Okay, now, how many of you think we can get in this space if we pack everybody that way? Quite a bit, right? There's a lot more people in here. Now, what if I say, you guys have to stand like this, maybe for the next 16 hours? No bathroom break, no lunch, you know, no cell phone, you know, what happened? On a serious note, what happened? These are conditions. Maybe you might pass out, maybe not avoid your thirsty, but we're talking about maybe weeks.
So you are an activist, and my question would be that why do we still need these activists if Obama is the president for the second time in America? So why?
Well, because what happened when we look at history and things, we can look at history in terms of just one person, but that's not accurate. You know, it's people that make history. So even though we have elected a black person as president of the United States, that doesn't mean that I can sleep late. You know, I don't have to wake up and do it. You know, oh, Obama's president, I can go back to sleep now. No, what happened? It means even more, because what it shows you is that here was an individual, you know, a black person who realized, okay, I'm not going to let anyone tell me I can't do this. Okay, and I think that's really a message for everyone to say, okay, if you have any dreams about being something or doing something, you can do it. You know, many years ago, if you told to a person, say, wow, you know, especially a black person, oh, I could never be president of the United States, I could never do this, because they never saw themselves going that far. So now here's a person who's able to do that. That shows you that if you want to be anything, especially you're a black person, you know, you can do it. You see? And so in that case, Obama's influence on our society, blacks and white, is one that's very, very important, because there is a sense of hope that's there. Okay, there is a sense that one can go from A to C, you know, and that one can also, with that journey, also change the society for good.
The other things in connection with your poems. In one of your poems, you wrote that freedom has very great power. How much is this power?
Well, freedom is key. You know, I mean, when we look at freedom and democracy, these are things that are just like air. You know, we have to have. Okay, this is why today one of the things that we face as a challenge is we have to make sure that our internet, for example, is not controlled. I mean, to some extent, the internet represents almost, you know, pure democracy. You know, your access to information and things of that sort immediately. I mean, that's a very empowering tool. But with it comes a considerable amount of responsibility. But we have to make sure that it's not controlled by some corporations, you know, that there's no limitations in terms of how some governments might want to control it. That's really something that's very obvious, that we can see, okay, this type of freedom that we've seen recently, we have to protect, okay? We can't have anybody control it. And if we do that, then we're going to really suffer in terms of human beings.
Alacsony nő pisztollyal vezet az erdőn át a folyónál. Csak lássuk munkat. A szabadságnak ereje van. Néha kézért le kell venned, hallanod, ahogy kap.
Which do you think is more important, to have a message or to express feelings in a poem?
Well, what happened? See, you're the doctor, and you're the doctor. You just separate them. You know, you keep them together. You know, they go together, hand in hand. There's no separation in terms of the message from the feeling. It's one.
Kettő vagy egy, azt mondja, nem számít. De igen, tudom, hogy számít. Ez az én testem nem Dél-Afrika, nem Nicaragua. Az én testem harcol a rákkal, és nincsenek tüntetők a kórház előtt. Csak Jim van itt. A váróban ül, azon gondolkodik, mit mondjon nekem, ha legközelebb szeretkezünk, és a kezével érinti a túlélő félt mellemet. Hogy győzzük meg magunkat arról, hogy nem számít, hogy vállalom fel a mesztelenséget, így, hogy már nem teljes.
In which I need your help. Can I get your help on that? Okay.
Every time I point to you, you say, all you got to do is say, huh. Can you do that? Let's have a practice. Huh. See? That's why he's sitting up front. Right? Okay, now can you do that? Ha. Okay. Right? All right. I'll do this. All right. Running. You can tell him I was flying. Tell him I was flying. If he asks you, was I laughing? You tell him I was crying. Tell him I was crying. Yeah, now, this is the type of song.
The blues become a collective being. Okay? And the blues singer is able to capture the feeling of the community. And sometimes the blues singer moves beyond words and captures a mood and a feeling with just something like right? You get to believe Your man or your woman lets you get you can't express that. It comes deep inside. I hurt, that pain. And what happens? People lose their home, you lose a loved one. You still have to deal with tomorrow. You still have to get up and deal with tomorrow. And the blues gives you a certain resilience, okay? Gives you that toughness. Some people tell us in terms of African-American history, we're not black people, we're blues people.
You wrote to why did you write it? Not to forget those things, or because you love to remember to them?
No, I wrote memoir for a key reason. I think that even for you, if you decide to write a memoir, right? And keep in mind, a memoir is just like a slice of your life. You want to write a memoir, you almost have to ask yourself, what can a person learn from your life? Okay, there might be things that you went through as a young woman that might be very important for other young women to know. That should be the reason why you write the memoir, that you're going to use your life as an example in terms of maybe there's obstacles that you overcame, maybe the things that you were very happy about that you want to share, but it should be a question, what can I learn from your life? So in my first memoir, I sort of mapped my life out to show how I became a writer, how I left New York, I went to school, what I saw, and how I became a writer. Okay, so that's the map. The second memoir, The Fifth Inning, I talk about mining, digging. Okay, so now what happened? I really wanted to get at like the things that I had been wrestling with, whether it was depression or success or failure. I really wanted to show through my life it's not easy. Okay, so I talk about being a father. You know, being a parent is very, very difficult. You know, sometimes you can make mistakes. I want to be very honest about that, so that when somebody who's a new parent or about to be a parent, they read my memoir and say, okay, I can get ready for this. Because Ethelbert said, you know, in his book, you know, this is not easy. And in a small way, you write a book, it affects a person's life. And that's where the memoirs are very, very important. And you can say more in a memoir than you can sometimes say in a poem. But at the same time, each genre is special, and depending on the needs of the person, they might pick a poem or a memoir, depending on their need at that time.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Okay?
Thank you.
I wish you well.